Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation, what does sensorality stabilize? So last time we kind of naturally arrived at the relationship between tension and energy, basically one and the same thing, and conceptually, as of now, they are. Again, just progressing as it comes up. Energeticality is tense, right? You go into a basketball arena, the NCAA tournament's on right now, right? And everything's all, right? Would you call that tense? Would you call it excitement? Right? There's a lot of energy in the room for sure. Would you call that tense? Again, doesn't matter. The answers are contained within the words. We are developing the right question to ask. But energeticality is tense. If there's a situation where it's tension like aggression or tension like potential violence, you would still call that, it could get active, it could get kinetic, it could get energetic. That's the natural presentation of that right there, but it doesn't feel complete, right? When I walk into a basketball arena and everyone's going crazy, I wouldn't call that tension, right? It's excitement, people are energetic, but not tension. Developing on, continuing on. But we can say and restate the fundamental theorem of physics, energy is intense. See what I did there? Nice. Do you know what else is intense? Camping. Probably already used that joke, it's a classic, it's not an original, but it is a good one. Energy is intensity. Sensorality is intensitality. Again, energy is intensity, again, presents, the conceptualization of power is energy velocity, right? How intense is the velocity? It's power. So, again, just presenting to you, again, any intuition that's connected throughout any part of this derivation. Sensorality is intensitality. Is velocity intense? And then once again, I rederive the same exact things. Intensity, insanity. What is intensity to power? Power is intense. Getting more at the conceptual. Again, words are naturally defined. Words are completely generalized. And so when we say, right, again, I'm going to think of it. I put no, the other episode when I kind of stuttered. I was like, why can't I think of, the same sound, but they're spelled differently with different conceptual meanings? No, I just heard David Favor, Mike Santoli, one of the two, say meat or meat. Classic. I prefer the M-E-A-T, meat. But for power and intensity, I just kind of blanked on that again. What I was saying is, when you have words are completely defined, and then when you use them in a given context, or spelling a word constructs a variable, the context defines it, but we're showing complete consistency, right? These are the words that are related to these other operative words. What these words mean, there is no absolute meaning, but what these words mean in an operative sense, right? If someone says, go fuck yourself, and it's your friend, you're not thinking he's actually going to do something sexual to you. And maybe he is, maybe he's not, but he's not being aggressive and telling you to get away from him or something. And so it's not, we're trying to get to this demonstration of completeness where there's no explanation needed at all, period, and it's just done. But is velocity intense? What is intensity to power? Power is intense. And to me, when I wrote that more conceptually coming from, like, if you're a world leader, right, power is intense. Oh, I can do basically whatever I want. Yeah, okay. But that's where I was coming from with that. Power is intense. Insensality is intense, right? If somebody is incensed, again, this word that if you type it into Google, just like speciality, special with an ITY, natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism, that is clearly why people say special, and we proved that linguistically. That was our first step for this whole analytical process. It says there's no definition on Google. It has a clear, well-defined usage. And same thing with incense, right? If I'm incensed, I'm really angry. People use it all the time. I point it out in all the books we read. But insensality is intense. And now again, sensorality is insensality. We have that C and the S. Again, that iteration is the things that we're showing this inversion, integration, iteration, demonstration. But now, again, we have another good connection. Comedicality is humorality, right? Comicality is comedicality. Comedicality produces medicality. And then humorality, right? Comedicality is humorality, logically consistent. But it produces, again, our two base words, morality and medicality. What is medicality to morality? Medicine is moral. Another interesting thing, again, liability and realizability from last episode, right? If you take away the Z from realizability, and reality, again, is a clear prefix, suffix, like limit or bounding, prefix and suffix bounding, with like no base word. And then realizability, if you spell that out without the Z, you get like liability is spelled out there again within. Like I said, only pointing out the linguistic structure, the word forms is what I will also call it, if it's insightful, because again, all of these steps demonstrate progression of the word forms. So now we've naturally arrived at what is volume to temperature. Tensity, tense, energy, temperature. What is volume to temperature? But again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. This is one of my favorite. It's like the Danube River of history, but for science class. It's PV equals nRT. It's a classic. And so the proportional, yeah, they're proportional. If they're on the opposite sides of the equation sign, see, now we have logical structure, right? That's why you get this inversality. Right? If they're on the opposite side of the equation sign, they're proportional. If they're on the same side, they're inversely proportional. And so, yeah, what is tensitality to temperature? Right? What is tension to temperature? Right? There's a lot of tension in the room. The temperatures are rising. But again, trying to arrive. I don't know if we're going. We've already solved all of physics, and I'm just reiterating through all of the implications to get to the definition of sensorality, which is a historical consideration. Like, is there, because we already solved all of physics, right? And thermodynamics is like the theme of physics, is what I would say. Is like the most comprehensively articulated theory. And people say, quantum mechanics is really small and general relativity is big and gravity is about really big, and it's just like, the answer to that is just no. But holistically, the ontology that is articulated most comprehensively is thermodynamics. But we've just, again, naturally rederived the relationship of volume and temperature, which produces PV equals nRT. PUV-NERT, it's a classic case. What is tensitality? Temperature just did that. Sensorality is experientiality. Sensation experiences. And again, I had another very conscious consideration of I for experience. I've spelled that one a lot throughout my life. So there's an I in there. But when I spelled experiential, like experientiality is sensational, I don't have an I in experen. It'll be on your screen again. It's one of these intuitive steps where I can't say anything else, but I think about it every single time, and that's why I say it out loud. What is experience to detail? Teens are tense. And you're like, oh yeah, definitely, those Zoomers, those Gen Alpha, whoever the teens are these days. Ha, I'm an old dude. But no, literally, teens are tense. Like, it uses the exact same letters. And so it's just a direct iteration. But logically, most people would agree with that sentiment. But I don't like to generalize, except for academics. They're all criminals. And law enforcement, they're all pussies. But teens are tense as a direct iteration. What is iteration to reiteration? Right, so up until here, again, we have a lot of working definitions, but the physical ones are correct. Right? They are directly correct, and we were just deriving, again, we've derived all of the major relationships, which again, that's where you get the equations. Right? Again, Newton didn't even say, force is, equal to mass times acceleration, or he didn't write the equation. Leibniz did. And so we're at the point where then you even see historically, you get the conceptualization, articulating an equation is, I don't want to say trivial, but it's already been done. Like, there's no new equations I can introduce. But iteration we've been discussing in a lot of different ways, but kind of right now is like structure, right? The dynamic of charge to produce mass is an iteration. Like, it's kind of the intuition I was coming from, but linguistically, obviously, directly the same. The prefix to do again. Reiteration reinforces. Then we just had iteration forces, but what is, when you iterate something, you do it again. You improve the efficiency. You have a new version of the iPhone. You have a new iteration, a new generation of people, right? It's an iteration. So it's like enhancing, refining the structure, but to me, it still has to do with mass, like specifically to mass. Or if you're reiterating, it's like you're reinforcing more of the logical presentation of, hey, here's your spelling vocab word. We're going to say it in a sentence 7 different ways. That's going to reiterate. Again, pointing out any step that jumps out. But reiteration spells out REIT, like a financial product to trade real estate holdings. Because again, this logical consistency extends past just like one section of ontology. Because you represent it with words, these words form contractions, and then you see that syllability pairing up in other places. Sensorality is reiterationality. Sensorality rehabilitates. So this is a fun one. This is some genuine logical linguistical meat. Sensorality is rehabilitationality. Habilitation, habitation. Habilitation is habitation without an IL. Directly literally, habilitation is the ability to habitat. Habitat, habitual. Sensorality is habituality. Sensorality is inhabitability, right? If it's inhabitable, that's a phrase people will use, generalize inhabitability. And again, we could generalize to inhabitability. But if it's already in this ility form, there's kind of like no purpose to do that, because again, we're trying to get it into a solvable form. And the exact same logic of find a common denominator to solve, or finding the right linguistical structure to resolve. That is not an analogy in any way. And so sometimes I expand the word form, sometimes it's clearly that's already like expanded enough. I cannot provide you any more insight. I do it very instinctually. But sensorality is inhabitability. Living inhabits, right? My habitat, I'm inhabiting. Living inhabits. But again, moving is rehabilitation. Or okay, I'll get there. But moving is rehabilitation. Like if you're literally moving, you're just changing your habitat. Direct, literal, logical, some sort of renormalization. And then the structure of rehabilitation. It's ability, and then ality. It's like some form of that iteration. Which I do wanted to say that ality, and then if you generalize ality, you get alitalitality, and it just keeps going. That's indefiniteness, right? Like literally. It's not definite, it's not specific enough to have meaning, and then it doesn't stop. That is indefiniteness literally. And it like logically bounds our linguistics where it leaves infinite room for, again, new word forms, but it doesn't can have meaning or something. But regardless, habitat, rehabilitation, moving rehabilitates. You're changing your environment. It's a direct literal statement. Moving rehabilitates. Sensorality habilitates. And again, it's a word. Habitation, rehabilitate has meaning, but it's such a direct iteration of letters, of it and ality and ability, which is again this inversion, right? Sensorality differentiates speciality. Speciality is differentiation. We just had, right, tension is energy. So that's like, it's like we're getting to some sort of resolution. Rehabilitation rehabitats. And then I have rabbits in the side because it's obvious of the word form. But I did want to point out throughout writing this, I noticed again the handwriting, which again, if there's handwriting, what is writing? Right? Font, typing formalizes handwriting. But again, what differentiation is handwriting from writing? How else do you write if it's not by hand before there's technology? Again, it is some differentiation of you are knighted, you are the Knight of England, you have rights. I don't have rights, I still don't have them. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, Fifth Amendment. Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of meat going on right now. Sensorality is rehabilitality. Sensorality is habilitality. Yeah, that is where I'm at. And then the last kind of thing is, what is activity to ability? All right, let's see if we can solve it. But again, even like a lot of these things, and I'm obviously saying this before I've edited it, but you can see like the spacing where like two letters will have like an elemental slot, and then it will just go to one letter, but like the spacing, the geometric shapes will still be directly preserving the reduction and stuff. And so what is activity to ability? Sensorality is activitality. That is where I finished up. Again, my rights continue to be violated. A lot of meat. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.